Today's episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by System 12 Guitar Method. Sign up today at ryanroxie.com.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie. I am your host, Ryan Roxie, and, well, thanks for coming. File into that chat right now if you're on our YouTube official channel. Thank you very much. Hit that subscribe button for us, Vic. Can you hit that button? Thank you. I think I'm getting it right, the point now. And if you are listening to us on one of the audio broadcasts, which is Apple, Spotify, or Google, any of those, thank you very much. But we'd love to have you on our Ryan Roxie official YouTube channel and watch the entire show. So today on In the Trenches, we have a guest that is truly deserving of the name. In fact, the entire podcast was built for guests like this. He's been grinding it out in the clubs and the comedy stages all over the world for years. He's been building a career and a fan base borderlining on a religious cult-like status, although you might not want to get him started on religion, all right? But like so many of our guitar heroes we have on the show, I listened to countless hours of his albums and his work. So I'm going to do my best not to let the awkwardness / fanboy get the best of me. Instead, I'll just invite him into the trenches so you all can sit in on the conversation as we welcome Doug Stanhope. Hello, Doug.
You just read that, and I'm like, was this like on my website? Is that my bio? And then I realized I did a little bit of prep work yesterday for this, but I just wrote if I was getting like an all-time a lifetime achievement award. You just read that, and you wrote that yourself, and I'm very impressed.
I wrote it between cocktails of doing research all day. And we did this right before we started hitting record, but cheers, my friend. Thank you for being on In the Trenches.
Yeah, there's a little booze shakes in that mimosa.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. And obviously you're way on the West Coast of the world. I'm at the North Pole. And we're going to talk about Bisbee, Arizona in just a little bit. But
home, Malmo, where are you at?
I am in Stockholm, Sweden, right in the thick of it. And I know that you've played here before. In fact, you've played all over the friggin' world, man. Grinding it out.
I actually love Scandinavia. I'm a fucking huge freak for Norway. I hate the UK. The rest of Europe, I suck my dick. But
what was that? One of my favorite albums is Oslo.
I fucking hate. That's the only one I really regret.
That live album?
Yeah.
Shit, man. No.
I had just recorded the previous from across the street, and my manager found some famous fucking Swedish photographer to do the cover art. And then the photographer's like, if you want to film tonight's show for a special, we'll do it for like fucking pennies on the dollar. And then again, my manager's going, well, it's a great deal financially. I go, but the material's not nearly ready yet. I mean, I just put out the previous album. That's not out. Why would we? Because it's a good deal. He's a cheap fuck. And
hey, that's the manager. We're going to get into the business part of it as well. That's good. And how you met him. Harrigan, right? Is it Hennigan?
Hennigan, yes.
Hennigan, yes.
Let me first say, if I was at all professional, I would have rescheduled this fucking podcast because I just got my second vaccination yesterday. And I heard the second one, you have more side effects.
Is it kicking your ass?
Well, my arm hurts like fuck. Neither shot hurt whatsoever. Barely feel it. And I'm terrified of needles. But the next day it feels like your friend had been hammering you in the arm. So all night I was sleeping and I roll over a lot. So every time I would roll to that arm, I'd fucking wake up in a half lucid dream going, ow, and thinking that the dream was somehow related to, that vaccination is fucking with my head. Nah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way about needles, and that's probably what's saved my life throughout the years, I feel, because I never went to that level.
I know. I did 2 vaccinations, yet I'm still reticent to try heroin, and it doesn't make any sense.
Nah, it's always been something that I've been in the room, and then I've sort of luckily snuck out of the room. I don't think I've ever done it. I mean, you know, the late 80s and the early 90s, it's one of those things where I don't know. Maybe there was some ecstasy floating around that might have had it in it. I heard urban legend that the good stuff did.
Yeah, Hedberg used to have a joke. That's how I knew he was on heroin, because Hedberg's jokes usually were based in some kind of truth. Mitch Hedberg, of course.
Mitch Hedberg, yeah.
He
that's
he
our
said,
producer Vic putting it up right away, man. Look at
he's
that.
fucking good. Yeah, he had some joke that referred to when you have something that you enjoy, but then someone you find I'm destroying this fucking joke, but he says, like, you like smoking pot, and then someone sprinkles some heroin into your pot. Regular pot is no longer fun. Wow, he's fucking good at heroin, because I know him. That joke wasn't in the set last time we worked together.
Yeah, I was always more on the upside, and then I having a nice stiff cocktail was always kind of a new thing. This right here is an old fashioned. It's
you're a master.
But I've given it, I've given it a little bit of a twist. Instead of just straight up, I put a little bit of soda water into it as well.
Yeah.
And as far as the simple syrup goes, and you're going to laugh at this because it's not a Swedish thing at all, I found some Mrs. Butterworth's like American syrup, and that's my sort of sweetener, simple syrup that I put into it.
Was that like a default? Like, fuck, we're out of simple syrup. So
yeah, it was like I didn't want to make my own simple syrup because I was lazy on one of these podcasts earlier, and then I just said, let me just try some pancake syrup, and now it has a nice maple flavor.
Oh my god, Vermont is so gonna steal that from you. Every fucking hippie bar in Burlington is gonna be serving maple old fashions.
Oh, hipster fashions. Yeah. They're not even going to be old fashions anymore. The new fashions. That's funny, man. So like, I'm thinking that we probably cross paths at one point or another. And I'm going to get through that. If we can just start off with getting back to go forward, because that's the way we have this section. Vic, you want to roll that? We try to pull ourselves off as a real show, and then we fail. Sometimes we stumble. It's okay, But we have sound effects. We have a motorcycle sound. I don't know.
Wait, what was that going to be?
It's just a little part of going back to get forward. I want to talk a little bit about how you ended up, during those years, because the first thing off the bat that I noticed that's a little bit of a similarity between us is that we both kind of started out the same exact year. You're a little bit of a, I'm a little bit older than you. I'm a little bit of your
year and a half. We're year and a half. We're the same age.
Which exactly. We have this
54.
That's why I'm thinking that we fucking passed around the same sort of clubs, the same sort of, because we were both living in Los Angeles around the same years. But I'm going to digress a little bit because you first you grew up in the Northeast, Boston, right? And the Boston area.
Yeah, until I was legal to leave and be on my own. I have like no memory of, like, it didn't like, I'm not one of those guys that like, I'm Boston guy, or Worcester is where I'm from. Like, I didn't keep it like a lot of people.
But did you leave as soon as you could, right? Because I left at 17. I left San Francisco Bay Area, and because I grew up in the Bay Area, moved down to Los Angeles because that's where the music was. Like at 17, I just fucking drove.
What year was that? 85?
That was in 83.
Oh,
83. Right. So it was like right as soon as I, kind of could, I was there. And it freaks me out now because I think about, driving down to Los Angeles as a 16 and 17-year-old, just going up and down the 5 like a fucking maniac.
Like, just the hubris to think that you could survive on your own being a fucking child like that.
That's one thing that's changed from both of our generation to what it is today. Trust me. And you know that. I mean, as far as, even though you don't have kids and you're pretty vocal about that, but it's one of those things that the kids today don't have any idea about what it would be like to be that independent. I don't feel, or do they?
I would assume that all the fucking gadgetry makes people like when we think back to those days, like you had to go to a payphone and have change to call your, now you just Google where the fuck you are. When I showed up in LA at 18 in 1985 off an Amtrak for 4.5 days, I picked up the local newspaper and I looked at the class. I didn't know where I was. I'd ask someone how to get a bus. Like there was no instant knowledge like Google or GPS. So
what were those things that everybody had in their car? It was like a something guide, a Thompson guide. Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah, LA, the Thompson guide.
Yeah, and people would drive, and
it was like the Encyclopedia Britannica for getting the fuck around LA. It like had pages for every neighborhood. It was this thick. It was like a phone book.
Yeah. Oh fuck.
Cab drivers had them. Where are you going? And they'd have to look it up.
So when I checked it out, 1990 is when you've said that's when it kind of started for you, and it started out in Vegas, which was were you living there, or was LA first the place and then you just went over to Vegas?
I thought I was going to be an actor when I was 18. I go, I'm moving as soon as I turn 18. I'm moving to Hollywood and I'm going to get into acting. And I hardly ever act. I was in a couple of school plays, but it seemed like something I could do.
I think you have that child actor face already. You know, if you look back in those days, I've seen the shots. You even sported a mullet on.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. We all had mullets.
There's one video floating around from like after I'd only been doing comedy a year, and somehow I got on Evening at the Improv, mostly because they put out like 50 episodes a week. So they were using anyone that they could get. And I had the mullet almost looked like it was permed in the front. I must have blown it dry or something. I have no idea.
A lot of product back in those days, to get that exact bouffant.
Yeah.
But what was good is
I lasted about 6 months in 85 is when I got to LA, and that dream's over, and I bailed. And then I just kept moving around and moved to Florida for a few months. I moved to Vegas. I moved to Idaho. I moved back to Vegas and started comedy at 23 in 1990.
Okay. So right in 1990, because I was going to think, because I was doing the research on it, and
where were you?
I was in New York. Yeah. We're kind of going back and forth because at that point I was in LA from those early 80s up until about 87. Then I moved to New York, lived there for a few years. And then I moved back in like 91, 92. So I was back in LA for my second stint when you were. But I was going to talk a little bit about the days before and wondering if you remembered those days. And I don't know if you just went there learning the chops, learning the gig, but at the Comedy Store, they used to have Monday nights for free, right? It was a free Monday night. And I remember back in a couple of years, you could go see on Monday night for free as long as somebody bought 2 drinks, dice.
Yeah, like $9 Cokes.
Sure. And then you'd have to find money for the other Coke. But the thing was, it was dice, Kennison, and do you remember comedian Carl LeBeau? That was like Kennison's buddy.
Yeah, he's still around.
Yeah, so those guys,
million years, but yeah.
Shit, you got Carl LeBeau, Vic. Fucking good work on that. All right. So did you ever go to those or see? Because there was also this Crest Hill house that they talked about, right?
No, that was just before my time. I started in Vegas in 1990, and then I moved to Phoenix. Then I lived out of my car for 3 years from 92 to 95, and that's when I moved to LA in 95. And like Hicks was already dead, Kinnison was already dead.
But you were Jewel before.
I had already tried on fucking Arsenio Hall. It was over.
Right.
Yeah, I think how is it in 85 you had an album that was called Whatever Happened to Fun?
Whatever Happened to Fun. Yeah, that was the first band I was ever in 85. That was actually
you're fucking 19 years old and you're already bemoaning the death of fun and the height of cocaine years.
that was our bass player that wrote all the lyrics. He was heavily influenced by Elvis Costello as well. So yeah, and dark shit. I mean, which is kind of like, wait till you listen to the Electric Angels album lyrics and stuff like that. So yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's what it makes. like the death of Kinnison and all those guys, the rock and roll comedy era died with Kinnison.
You have to understand, Doug. I mean, give the lyric credit to my bass player, because then I joined a band a little bit later called Dad's Porno Mag, and our big song was "Smell My Finger." So it was a little bit lighter, I would say, and I used to call it a love song.
Yeah, but well, back then, most of my act was kind of smell my finger jokes. I had no point of view when I was 25 years old. I didn't have
why I'm thinking of how we didn't cross paths before, because during those same years that you were, because you said you eventually moved to Los Angeles in 95, right? You bashed it out at, I think it was in Las Vegas. Was it the Backstage or part of those clubs?
When I lived in Vegas, it was that was at the tail end of the 80s comedy boom. 1990, there was still comedy on primetime network television, Sunday night comics on Fox. Like, there's never been stand-up comedy in primetime network since then, even though there's been a resurgence of comedy. So there was an open mic like every other bar. It was the cheapest thing. Like, fuck a cover band. We can get comics and they don't need fucking gear and they just a microphone. So at my second week of trying comedy, I worked 6 nights at different open mics. So
I think the open mics work, and I think club shows work, but I want to know if you disagree or agree with me. I don't know if comedians and rock shows in the clubs actually work, because, earlier in the 70s and 80s, I think Alice Cooper used to have Cheech and Chong as the opening act, and I think that was a big deal, right?
Hang on. Yesterday I had Dennis Locarere. God damn it, Dennis from Dr. Hook.
Oh wow, okay, man.
I have to practice saying his fucking name.
Is it fucking the cover of the Rolling Stone, Dr. Hook?
Yeah, Sylvia's mother. When you're in love with a beautiful woman, and he said that they opened for Cheech and Chong. And I'm like, how does that fucking work? Like, every time every comedian that's opened for a band it's a fucking nightmare story. Nobody that was going to see music wants to hear a guy talk. But
what I was able to catch, my sort of tail end of Los Angeles before I moved to New York, I was able to catch this really cool synergy. And you might have just missed it, but it was a time when comedy, rock and roll, because Ricky Rackman had this place called the Cat House. It was a club where all the rock and rollers went, and you had strippers that sort of fueled and funded the whole enterprise. Because, if you hang out with comedians and you hang out with rock and rollers, especially, during those days, pretty much penniless.
Well,
yeah, there was probably Ron Jeremy, the fucking fossilized.
No, but I'm saying like Kinnison always had porn chicks hanging around with him at the Comedy Store.
Right, but there was a synergy. Like, was what I'm saying. Yeah. So all us rockers would go to the Comedy Store, and then the comedy guys would come to see a rock show up at the Roxy or something like that, or the Coconut Teaser. And I don't know if you remember that place.
Yeah.
and
that's
then
one of the places, because I was not cool yet. I was not known. I had just shown up in LA. So I would I lived at Curson and between Fountain and Santa Monica. Dude, so I'm walking distance. Where?
829 Curson. That's where I think we had to have crossed each other. Oh, get the hell out. So because I was on Curson between Melrose and Melrose and Willoughby, right?
Okay, so that's down by the Snake Pit.
Yeah, exactly. A block or two away from the Snake Pit. And then we could always go watch a Sunday game there. And that's another thing that I think we have in common, is both of us are pretty big NFL fans, right?
I'm a huge football fan, and I have been since I was a kid. I don't know a fucking thing about the sport. I don't know the difference between a safety and a defensive back, or I don't know what they do. I like the fucking uniforms. I like betting on it.
But they make it so easy now with fluorescent lights. This is how I explain to people, because every year we have a Super Bowl party here in Sweden. I bring a bunch of my Swedish friends, and I try to educate them, drunk Swedish guys at 12:30 at night when the game starts, 1 a.m., right? So when I go, this is the yellow line. They only have to get to the blue line if to get another 4 tries.
Okay,
But
yeah,
all that stuff.
And that part, but I like for at this age, I should know the specifics. I don't know what a fucking that's a slant route. Did he catch it or not? I don't fucking.
I know.
Care.
Okay, we should know go routes. We should be able to read defenses. I'm exactly like you. I've now after I don't know how many decades of watching NFL, now starting to look at things that are going out besides the ball. Besides the snap. So
yeah, I sometimes I just scan the audience for really fucking goofy people, and then I pause and go, look at that stupid fuck up there. Anyway, yeah, my attention span is terrible. So let's get back to you.
Well, that's good. I like that because I think perhaps our audience might have that attention span as well. Because I want to bop around a little bit like that, but I just want to close that out because I won't ask any more NFL questions to you. But what did you think about this last year with not having? Did you miss not having crowds there and hearing the sounds?
No, because I grew up as a Raiders fan back in the Kenny Stabler days.
Hello, I'm from Oakland.
Yeah. So I love that. And then when they moved to LA, it was like all the fucking fans turned into gangbangers and everyone's afraid to fucking go into the stands. So I loved the idea that they moved to Vegas and all those assholes can't get in the stadium. So they're tailgating at 115 degrees wearing a fucking Darth Vader costume and melting to death inside their own fucking vanity.
I feel it must be like Road Warrior, when they finally do let fans back to into the stadium. The trip from LA to Vegas will probably be a lot like Road Warrior. We see some guy
helicopter car.
Exactly. No, but I grew up in the 70s.
Chewbacca suit.
Imagine that. No, I saw.
Any Raiders would lose. Just the idea of one of those guys dressed like a fucking asshole, having to go back to his Chevy Chevette with his thumbs in his pockets. I'm still dressed like this, but we just lost 52-7. Meh.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it over the last fucking 20 years, ever since the 70s.
Is that your team?
Yeah, Raiders have always been my team, and like I said, I grew up in the Bay Area in the 70s, so it was Oakland A's and Raiders, and you didn't think so much about the Golden State Warriors, but the thing was, I actually
why I love the Golden State Warriors is because nobody knew where they were from, unless you lived in California and knew it was the Golden State. It's like if they had the Keystone State fucking Mavericks, no one knows that's Pennsylvania.
The only other thing that you knew about that team back in those days, because now it's like a super team and this and that dynasty, but I knew Rick Barry, and he used to shoot free throws like grandma style. That was his, granny style.
Discussion where it's actually someone was saying that the last guy that shot diaper shot, we used to call it.
Diaper shot.
Was like 98% accuracy, but they just stopped doing it because it looks so. I don't know what the word for it is, but
it doesn't look graceful. But you know what? It goes in. It's effective.
Girl would throw a free throw,
but it goes in. At least it went in for Rick.
I get really bad fucking hate mail from 9-year-old girls after I said that.
Yeah. Well, anything to get canceled these days because they can't do it to you. They can't do it to you, Doug. You're like,
that's in my notes. This is going to last a while. I'm not going to force all of my fucking thoughts into like one sentence. So, but yeah, I want to talk about cancel culture with you.
We will definitely do that. My whole point in closing out NFL and closing out the Raiders talk was in Los Angeles. I actually did get to see. Well, it wasn't get to see. I fucking went to the game and saw Bo Jackson's last game.
Wow.
The one where he broke his whole hip. I mean, his leg came out of his hip, and it was just like, and it didn't seem like anything. I think they were playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was just a regular run play. It's a regular, he got the ball and ran, and somebody tackled him on the side. And then he kind of went a little bit weird and off to the side. And who would have known that guy, that would have been the last of the that was kind of the last of the LA Raiders at that point,
Yeah. I think they closed at the same time. Bo Jackson in LA.
Shit. So we're in LA. and we're moving on. We're here with Doug Stanhope, folks. Thank you very much. And we might go, a little bit off the track, and not keep with the script, but I like that because
please let's keep it fucked up.
Well, like I'm saying, we had to have crossed paths at one point or another.
Oh wait, okay, that's where I was. When Coconut Teaser, I remember that because I had just moved to LA. I could walk there from my apartment on Curzon, rent control, by the way, and it's still in the family, so to speak. I got that place, 1 bedroom for $410 a month in 1995, and I think it's up to like 900 or 800, where everything else that size would be like 2,000 plus.
You know who else had a rent controlled house like that? Lemmy had one right off of Doheny, and that's the reason why he would never leave that beautiful apartment, because I think it was like $250, like in 2007 or something. It was like some crazy deal that he had, and that's why. And I'm sure it's probably still in the in the family as well as you say.
Yes, so I go to Lemmy's dead, so hopefully he left a will.
Yeah. Someone has to take all his German paraphernalia, definitely.
So I show up at the Coconut Teaser thinking, I don't know anyone in LA. I'm not cool. I'm not known. And I went to the Coconut Teaser, and it was one of those, nights where no one's looking at me. No one's talking to me. The only time I had any fucking game is if it was after my own show and someone says you're funny. And it was just one of those, I'm sitting in the corner. I feel like I'm fucking high school again. I don't know how to party. Like, it was, I remember, that's how I remember the Coconut Teaser. The one time I went in there and I felt like the ugly girl at the fucking prom.
I don't know, man, because I mean that place for me, Len Fagan, I remember him so well. I don't remember actually playing that many shows there because you would just get a little bit too blottoed there at the, because it was right there. It was too close to everybody that was having some sort of after party somewhere where you could, and you might not be invited to that after party, but you would inevitably sneak in to somewhere that was somebody that was living up in Laurel Canyon, or maybe someone that was living down in West Hollywood, because you had that it was right on Laurel Canyon and Sunset. So you had to make a choice at one point. And there was no Uber back then. So you just had to find the most sober person that you were with, hopefully.
Yeah. I wasn't I grew into this, Ryan, but at that time when I had just showed up, I was never a person that could just, ingratiate myself into a conversation. I would just wait for someone to talk to me, and it didn't happen. You have to be somewhat outgoing, but I was terrified. And I was not a rock and roller. I didn't know shit about music. I couldn't dance. Like, all right, I need to just stay at comedy clubs.
But did you have a circle of guys, gals, comedians that you hung around in those days? Because there are a lot of similarities between rock and rollers and comedians in the sense of we experience so much of the same lifestyle. Like when anybody ever says, "Oh man, touring's so amazing. It must be such a nonstop party," and you're like, "No. It's so far from that at times. It can be fun, and that's why we do it." But
you get to it, and I have this actually in my notes because I looked at your previous guests because I really know dick about music. I do know Alice Cooper, but I saw Jamie Kilstein.
Yeah, Jamie.
Like, how the fuck do you know Jamie Kilstein of all people? And he's one of those people that I met. Because like you say, you get burned out on the road. But when you have a new kid, like when I met him, he was an open micer that traveled from New York City to Baltimore just to watch my show. And for some twist of fate, the MC that was scheduled did not show up. So I go, "Hey, you want to fucking work for the weekend?" He had told me, "I came down here." He's just a broke kid. "I came down here just to see you." And I'm like, "Hey, you want to work the weekend? There's no lodging, but you and your buddy can crash on my hotel room floor." And it was just like, I was burned out on the road. But when you watch it through fresh eyes, we're going to get to sleep on his floor and work. It's fucking great. And you must have someone like that in your life that, was starry-eyed when they were kids.
I mean, I feel that, but then that to me is like passing the torch or whatever I can look on, pass on to them. If I can pass on some sort of experience, which you obviously have, you've been able to, there's not one comedian, and Jamie's going to come up again a little bit later in the podcast, but there's not one comedian that I've talked to that, doesn't mention within, first 5 names, first maybe top 3, it's always Stanhope comes up, and and sometimes I know you don't like talking about yourself so much, but at the same time, what I'm getting at is musicians talk about hit songs, right?
Yeah.
Actors talk about some sort of movie, some sort of classic movie they've been into. It seems as though sometimes comedians can't really talk about their greatest hits or their greatest bits, or do they? Because a lot of times comedians want to just do their thing and then they move on and they don't do any of the material.
Right. Well, yeah, once you record it and put it out, it's as everyone knows, it's the opposite of music.
Opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a song. We have to do a song.
That joke. Nobody ever says that.
But do you ever, does it make you feel awkward to talk about some of the classic bits that you've done that?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I never watch myself, even just if I walk in and my producer is editing the podcast we just did last night, and I hear my voice, I'm like, I leave the room. But a couple years ago, I forced myself to go on these just road trips, just locally, and alone play all of the audio in the car of every special I've put out, and force myself to listen to it. Because at some point, like after 30 years I've been doing this, you go, I kind of feel like I'm just rewriting old bits with new words, or maybe I'm like, a couple times I've caught myself stealing my own bits, going, that sounds kind of familiar. And then you go, oh yeah, you did that in fucking 2006 on some fucking dumb recording. But I think
as musicians, we do that all the time and we get credited for it. We just rewrite the same song, try to change the chords around a little bit, and then that's an okay thing.
Well, that's how you get your sound.
Right.
The same way a comedian finds his voice. Okay, this is his point of view. But I'm so far removed from the days when I recorded that shit that I can look at it like I'm an outsider. Like, oh, just like my mullet. Like, I can watch that now because it's silly. I'm a fucking old man, and I can appreciate how fucking ridiculous I was when I started. So yeah, it's kind of fun at this point, but it never was.
I had blonde dreadlocks, thinking that was like the shit. I had blonde, at one point, and I also had a mohawk, much like yourselves. I dyed it a few colors.
It only goes back to my bald spot.
It's a faux hawk. Well, yeah. Well, Forehawk. Okay. I have a beanie that keeps all that sort of in check, and it's sort of, it's still my hair, but I know it's going someday. So then I just feel like wear the Andy McCoy headband or whatever you got to do, the Bret Michaels sort of thing, as long as it goes, I'm the thing about some of the classic things that you've said, I think are good ideas as well. For instance, the bit I'm talking about is the spaceship to Glark, or the trip to Glark, where your theory of evolution, I've tried to explain this, and I might have been a little bit inebriated at times, to people really late at night. And if you get someone at the right moment, it sounds very convincing, so if anybody in our audience hasn't listened to,
that's the most underrated. Like, as much as I hated Oslo, that's the one that was previous to it that we were doing the cover art for. And when I listened to that, because I kind of dismissed it after I did that, and I went back and listened to that, I go, fuck, this is a really good album. There's some great shit on this.
That's the one I'm talking about. And I think Bridge to Burning, Oslo Bridge.
No, Oslo is the one that I was The one you're talking about is the From Across the Street. That's the one I was doing the cover art for the day that we filmed Oslo.
Okay, so did you record it in Oslo though, From Across the Street?
No, not the bit you're talking about. We recorded at Cape Fear.
Got it.
But that's the one that I kind of forgot about.
Spaceship to Glark, though, dude. If you ever want to hear Doug Stanhope's theory of evolution, I think it makes a lot of sense. And that's all I'll say, because, you don't want to I don't want to retell the jokes. I can't do that. I'm fucking play guitar. But another classic one, I think, off the same album, or maybe it was one of the albums before, right after.
It was something about black glory holes. Black holes, but they're glory holes. You stick your dick through a black hole, and someone on the other side of the black hole sucks your dick in a different galaxy, and you pretend it's a chick.
As you do. Exactly. And there was another one that resonated with me because, obviously living in the States all these years, then I moved. Another similarity that we both moved out of LA in 2005. I got out. I just went all the way to the North Pole. You went to Arizona, but it was the bit about the royalty.
Oh yeah.
And it's friggin' classic, because honestly, it couldn't be even more pertinent for today with how useless and other people's baggage. I love that. The one language. It was a lot of great bits on those albums. So like I've said, folks, you're going to go down this Doug Stanhope rabbit hole, hopefully after this podcast. Yeah, why not? But you don't really see comedians' greatest hits tours, or do they actually do that?
We've been talking about this because, unlike music, you can't copyright material. Where I'm finding the loophole in this. Back to your point where I say I'm not smart. I'm talking about like if I have like a bit that has a libertarian angle. Then the Libertarian Party says, "Hey, will you come and speak at our fucking event?" And I'm like, no, the entirety of my knowledge about that subject is in the bit. I don't have any follow-up. So
that's all I have. I've laid it out there.
I'm not saying I'm fucking stupid, but I probably don't know any more about the subject I'm doing a bit about than is already present. If that makes sense.
But when you're doing the bit, you definitely research it, and I'm wondering if you approach it the same way as a musician would writing a song. Does it go through a bunch of different incarnations of
yes.
it? Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, the last special, I had just a little bit of Me Too stuff, but I had been doing all of that before Me Too was even a fucking thing. And you think, oh, I better get this bit up before this whole thing dies. I think it started with Dan Tosh. Yeah, he had a kerfuffle with a blogger. I love your fucking producer.
Yeah, that's Vic Chalfant right there for you. He's on top of it, baby.
I was already doing bits based on Andy Andrist's molestation story, and then the fucking Dan Tosh made it more relevant. But as the fucking whole process kept going on, I'm reworking the bit to the point where if I went back from that point to the last special, that would be like 5 years of trying to rework this bit to make it like current or fit with a specific incident. And yeah,
we're talking about The Dying of a Last Breed, the latest special, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because we're going to get into that. We call that the main event in just a bit. But obviously, folks, I'm having too good of a time having a cocktail, having a good conversation with.
Yeah, I hope you don't have another fucking podcast scheduled later, because we'll still be talking.
Hello, folks. Roxie here. Hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. I'm very excited today to announce our newest sponsor, Beyerdynamic. They produce some of the industry's very best quality microphones and headphones, and that's why they're the perfect fit right here in the trenches. You're hearing my voice today through the great TG V70 microphone. This mic is perfect for any home studio, plus I get to use it on stage. I have paired the mic with the legendary Beyerdynamic studio headphones, and they're called the DT770 Pros. These are amazing for analytical listening, truly the most authentic sound experience I've ever had. So whether it's listening to a podcast or one of your favorite albums, I definitely recommend these. Treat yourself right with Beyerdynamic gear, the gold standard in high fidelity. Now, let's get back to the podcast. You just talked about comedians, and you mentioned Daniel Tosh. Now, would you consider, because to me, without fanboying out too much, I feel you have this legacy that transcends old school comics all the way to the new comics that are today. And who do you sort of consider the comedians that are your peers? Because I mean, I spoke of Dice and Kennison and Carl LeBeau and those guys. I kind of look at those guys as a bit more of the old school guys, but maybe the guys of your day, Tosh, would Dane Cook be one?
Dane Cook was my nemesis from well before either of us were known, since '95.
Was it the San Francisco comedy sort of
competition? And his manager tried to bet. It's a 3-week competition that, if you make it the whole, 3 weeks. And his manager had tried to bet me prize money. He's like, my guy's going to be in it too. You want to bet prize money? And I go, I have no idea who your guy is, and I really don't know. And the first night, his guy, Dane Cook, came in second the first night of the whole thing. And me and Hedberg were doing it, and we didn't even place in the top 5. And we're like, fuck this competition. And I got really drunk, and I saw his manager at the bar up at, I think it was it Cobb's or Punchline, wherever in the Bay Area. And I go, fuck you. I'll bet you $100 right now I win this entire thing outright, regardless of your fucking guy. You don't want to make that bet. Yeah, fucking try me. And so he turned in, and it turned into me and him the entire 3 weeks, neck and neck for first place. And I did win. And but then Dane Cook became my fucking nemesis. It's ingrained in me. I didn't have anything personally against him. And I just finally had him on a podcast. However, 25 years later,
married? I mean,
mending old fucking wounds.
Answer me this, Doug. Were those things back then? Because what you're talking to me, this comedy competitions, it sounds a little bit like a battle of the bands in some ways. But was it much? It was much more.
But I think bands are at least the old stories from when I would vaguely listen to music. It was always a battle. I remember being a kid going to concerts, and they would just regularly boo the opening band. And you hear all the stories about someone fucking stealing so-and-so's shit out of the green room because they shouldn't be the opener. And the headlining band comes off stage and they've pissed all over the couch in the green room. And so there was an inherent fuck you in rock and roll, where in comedy, generally not. It was only because of that bet. I really didn't have any beef with. It's just not. Dave Attell, who's the best comic of my generation, hands down. I will argue it till the end. When Dane
Cook say you are, but yeah, I like Dave as well. Yeah.
Yeah. When Dane Cook was at his height, his zenith, I remember talking to Dave Attell on the phone. He goes, "Oh yeah, Dane Cook. He's the perfect comedian for a 16-year-old girl who's crying because she just had an abortion."
It's a pretty good impression, and you are kind of good at doing impressions, because you actually did a John Lydon impression.
Oh no, it was the worst impression ever.
No, but here's the thing, folks. All right, this is what happens when you do research. When I do research for In the Trenches, I like to go deep, and like I said, I had a couple hours today. I mean, it's early in the morning over there in Phoenix or Arizona and Bisbee. It's fucking late over here in Stockholm. So I've actually had all day to go down these internet sort of rabbit hole, and I found a clip where a radio station called you, and they were thinking that they were talking to the lead singer of the Sex Pistols. And then did you just get on the line? And then how did the story go?
I was scheduled to do an 11 a.m. interview with some fucking guy. I don't know. And my phone rang at 6 a.m. And I'm like, motherfucker. And then it rang again. And then I called back. I'm just going to rail on whoever the fuck this is calling me at 6 a.m. And then I got a recording. However, I figured out, this is the guy that's he left me a message saying, "Hey, this is so-and-so. We have a interview scheduled. It's just going to be basic things. And we're going to talk about PIL and this." And I registered PIL, and I go, I think that's one of the Sex Pistols. Turned that. And so I wake up, I'm still fucking, my eyes are coated with fucking gunk. I can barely focus. My contacts are foggy, but I Google searched. I'm like, okay. So then I called the guy back and went, oh, I'm sorry. And I do this horrible British accent that I'm trying to fake while I'm looking at his Wikipedia page to figure out how to lie and pretend. And this guy had no fucking clue. And he's like, so the new album, what's your favorite track on the new album? And I go, well, if you know me, my first track is always my favorite track. I'm just...
Well, first cut's always my favorite on every LP I've put out.
Anything. And if I get stumped, I would take a mouthful of water and pretend to be vomiting into the toilet for the sound effect, because it would give me time to make up a lie.
It was one of a little bit more of a Ron Wood thing too. You'd sort of like do some indecipherable, like sort of English, or maybe even a Depp thing. Maybe it was a little bit of like Captain Jack, sort of like
before I knew Depp. But I was just making the point. What, like, I found out everything that I was doing. Like I was saying, I was still drunk from the night before because I'm going through a horrible divorce. And then later on, I found out like that guy's been sober for fucking decades, and his wife just died.
Oh man,
this guy had done.
That's right up your alley. That's literally is right up your alley of like what you would talk about or what you could joke about. The thing is,
well, wait, hang on, it gets better because this guy, like, he never caught on. And then I go, oh, you know what? I still have to do an interview with this guy
later.
And he's not gonna. I go in those 5 hours, he's gonna figure it out. But no, he called me, and then he was asking me the exact same questions that he was asking fake John Lydon. Like you've done no fucking zero research, and
no.
He put it out. We waited till he actually released it. It was transcribed in like Huffington Post, and it aired on whatever fucking internet network. And then we waited until it aired, and then we put out that, yeah, that's Doug Stanhope pretending to be John Lydon. And he's like begging my manager, can you please take that down? It's going to cost me my job. And like, it should cost you your fucking job.
Yeah, I could take his job. I do more research on the damn fucking podcast for nothing than he does for a gig. Yeah. I had something similar happen with, I was in a band called Electric Angels, and there was another band called Electric Boys. It's out at the same exact time when our first albums came out, 1990, when you're starting comedy. But we're in Boston, and we're at WAAF. You must know that radio station, right?
The Laugh Giraffe. Grew up with that.
So we go there and we get an interview. So we're asked to come in, and we go into this big studio, and we're like, wow, this is a big studio that we've never been in before. We're just some band out of New York, and now our album just came out. Maybe this is the way it is. And they start asking all these questions about, so how do you like it here? What do you think about the weather? And we're like, well, yeah, it's nice, and it's kind of similar to where we are because we're in New York, and it's kind of sunny and the same shit. And they're thinking that we're the Electric Boys from Sweden who have a big hit song, and we're just this band Electric Angels that are trying to make a living scratching it out in clubs. And so halfway through, the guy goes, I notice your accents are so Americanized. Where did you learn that? And we're like, because we're from America. And then it looks like they see each other, they look at each other, and they go, you're Electric Angels and not Electric Boys. And so we walk out of there, and we walk by, and we see the two guys from Electric Boys who are all dressed in scarves and all the same sort of clothes. And they kind of looking at us like, oh, shit.
Okay, all right, you just reminded me of something that happened in Sweden. Go ahead.
No, but that's the fucking irony. And now I'm friends with the guys in Electric Boys because I fucking live in Sweden now. So what happened in Sweden for you?
Story. I was doing some radio station when I was playing Stockholm, and I got bumped because they had an Elvis impersonator that was a special needs child, but a special needs Elvis, and I got bumped like, okay, I know we had you scheduled for whatever 8 a.m., but we're gonna move you to 9 because so and so is gonna he's on a time limit, or like his diaper's full. We gotta get him.
And that I couldn't find on the internet. Instead, I found the John Lydon thing. I don't know.
I haven't thought of that fucking memory until you brought this up.
Vic, can you put a picture of that special needs Elvis up right now, please? Vic doesn't see. Vic says he doesn't have it right now, but you know.
Do you know? Hang on. I wanted to ask you. Do you know Pablo Francisco?
That name sounds very, very, very familiar.
He's a comic. He's a friend of mine I haven't seen in years. He has issues.
Pablo Francisco, where's he from?
He's actually from Tucson,
Okay.
but he's an LA comic, but he's huge in Scandinavia. And when I was playing in Sweden, I think we had 2 dates, maybe 3: Malmo, Stockholm, but
Gothenburg. Yeah.
Pablo, his big bit that he milked for his entire career, even past when the guy died, was the movie voice guy. One man, one way.
Okay.
You know, the guy that does the previews.
Mm-hmm.
Coming this summer. He did a perfect impression. He was mostly almost a sound effect guy. He did voices. So he's perfect for English as a second language, even though they're very good at that second language in Scandinavia. Very easily digestible. A kind of a Dane Cook meets Michael Winslow. But he was touring around the same time in Sweden, and I'd see posters for him where he's got his Sweden dates were like 40 cities. And I go, I don't think there's 40 cities in Sweden.
Yeah, more gigs than I've had in Sweden.
And I would make fun of him on my shows. Oh, you guys love that Pablo Francisco, huh? One man, one joke that he's bled for over 20 years. And we get to one of the last shows we were doing was in Helsinki, and we check into the hotel, and I go out to smoke, and I'm looking at this like fucking 8-story, 2-block long building across from me that has a banner, the entire fucking top of the building, that says Pablo with the dates, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And it was a Pablo. It was the fucking art museum. It was a Pablo Picasso fucking exhibit. But I was like, so I go to the fucking. There's a mall with a food court, and I went to find food, and I just randomly. The food court was almost like an Indian marketplace with all these tiny little stalls, and I found some sushi, and I double take where I see Flip Schultz is a comic that I've worked with in Fort Lauderdale in the 90s. I go, Flip Schultz? What the fuck are you doing in a fucking Helsinki food court? He's like, oh, I'm working with Pablo, not the Picasso Museum, but they were also in town. And
sounds like one of your.
Well, you have to have stories about this. He's like, yeah, I'm opening for him because my half is opener, but half is handler to keep him off crack.
What if he took off a mask and it was Dane Cook?
But have you had, like, you have to have stories about people that, okay, you're kind of in charge of keeping the fucking singer off of,
yes,
on the straight and narrow. Have you ever put in that handler position?
Yeah, luckily not for Alice Cooper, because with Alice it would have been a little bit too crazy, I think, to be in a band with him back in his heyday. Like back when he was like, because he told me he'd wake up with a Budweiser, go to bed with a Budweiser. It was always in his hand. It was a microphone or a beer, and so I've only known him, clean and sober. So, but I have been in enough.
Because I met him through Depp. And I go,
that's right, because that's the thing. He plays, everyone that's listening right now is like, yeah, we know Roxie. We know that he plays in Hollywood Vampires. But I'm surprised that we haven't met through that before, because Depp's come up with us enough times where I thought you might be in the same orbit when he was playing, when we were playing, perhaps an LA show. He came up at the Pantages, and I do have to say this about Depp. He was one of the best prepared musicians that's ever come up and jammed with Alice Cooper. And that's probably how it all worked out with the Hollywood Vampires. He ended up being in a band with Joe Perry and everybody. But the thing was, I thought he was just going to come up for a couple songs. And then he goes, no, man, man, come over to the house. We'll practice a little bit. And then we'll play like 6 songs. All right, cool. So everybody went over to that house that he has and where he has the jam room in.
Yeah.
And so
64 or 84. Anyway.
Yeah, he learned all the songs like perfect except for Poison, right? The one song that he hadn't really gotten down to. And then he goes, brother, I'll have Poison down by tomorrow. And I go, I have no doubts you will. And so when the next day came, the guy came up and played half the set with us. So it was like he was very, very well prepared. And I'm sorry to cut your story off about how when you guys met, but so you have met Alice before was it a Hollywood Vampire show or what was it?
Yeah, it was. I was staying at Depp's and so you want to go to this? We're doing a benefit at a high school. It was a benefit for some kind of private school. So I saw him playing in a fucking basketball court for some private fucking school with the Vampires. And like Alice, I know. I was going to ask you because you're about the same age. I knew I was going to fanboy out and I was reticent. I know I'm going to be drinking and I know he's a clean and sober guy and just don't fanboy out about one particular album that I knew probably still know every lyric to. And it's From the Inside.
Wow. That was his sober album too. And a bunch of great musicians on that album.
It was about his time in a mental institution. Yeah. And I go, he probably doesn't even want to ever hear that album again because it's a bad time. What I want to bring up is there's a lot of albums from those days that I go, why would I have, like, I knew Alice Cooper and fucking all the songs that you had to know, 18.
School's Out. 18.
School's Out, yeah. All those. And this was one that didn't really have any hits on it. And I think there was a period of time. Did you have where you would get albums from the library?
Yes. I still have albums that I have not returned. I don't even want to know what the late fees are now.
But they were always the worst ones because
I'll tell you exactly which ones they are. I mean, because I know it. I have a Devo album, the one De-Evolution, the one that had we are not man, we are Devo, Devo. I have that one. I have Heart Bebe Le Beau or something like that. Fifi Le Rue. I don't know.
Hotel Heavy Horses. Only because it was available for free and I hadn't figured out how to go to Columbia House Record and Tape Club yet.
Right. Oh well, dude, that was the way that a lot of us discovered music, and I've heard you talk about that Columbia House thing. Did you ever actually join a Columbia House?
Yeah, I got in trouble. I was 10 years old. I just had to look this up because Dr. Hook was like, we just interviewed fucking Dr. Hook, and he was like, I had tweeted this, like, do you remember the first albums you ever stole from Columbia House? And he responded with, I think it was Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And I'm like, well, that was a 70s thing. You were already a star in the 70s and you're still.
You could have afforded the albums. You could have got the albums for free.
That's what he wrote back. He said, well, I was on Columbia House at the time, so they probably took it out of my royalties.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Shit.
Columbia Records.
I used to so my next door neighbor, Adam Wakeling, he used to he was part of that Columbia House. And so I would remember the 8-track tapes that he'd get. I don't know why he opted for the 8-track tapes, thinking that was going to be the future, right? 8-track tapes with fade ins and fade outs. But there were albums like Angel, White Hot. I don't know if you remember the band Angel. They were they were like a counterpart of Kiss, where Kiss was, all dark and sort of scary. Angel was white and sort of heavenly. So it was like the same manager, that kind of stuff. But the albums I remember were those K-Tel albums where there'd be a ton of different songs from the original artist, from the original singers, but then there'd be some albums where they try to hoodwink you. They try to hoodwink you.
You go, why is this available for 99 cents? Oh, this is not the fucking actual Village People. These guys are just posing as gay.
Sky rockets in flight, afternoon delight, and it'll be some sort of version of it that was crap, and it wasn't crap, but it was probably, it just wasn't the real thing. But I do remember Dr. Hook being on one of those albums that I think it was the K-Tel. It was either K-Tel or it was Ronco.
Ronco Records, yeah, that
You
was
remember
another one. Yeah, and Ginsu Knives, all in the same era. ELO, Out of the Blue, I think is the first. So I just deep dived this, so I want to purge it. What I remember stealing: Bob Seger's "Stranger in Town." I found like 4 that I go, I know I got that, and that's when I went. Wait, no, I wouldn't have got that from Columbia House. That must have been from the library.
There's a Kansas album in my library connection somewhere. Somewhere there's a Kansas album.
I know. I picture the cover.
What about Warren Zevon albums? Was there a Warren Zevon album in there?
No, I was looking at, I was going through some site that had the top songs of every year. So that's how I pinned down when I fucked over Columbia House record and tape. Okay, I know I had that. That was 77. That was 78. Columbia House would allow retailers 6 months of exclusivity before they'd put it on the fucking tape a penny to the postcard thing. So I was 77, 78. I was 10 or 11. I remember my mother going batshit, going, "You're going to get bad credit," or some shit. I'm like, no, how they get? How do they know? How do they know?
I wonder if that's what it all ends up on, as a Columbia House. Sorry, we'd love to sell you this house, but if you look back inside your credit,
my fucking head is ping ponging all over the fucking charts right now. But so Alice Cooper, cut to, I get drunk at their show. I know he's clean and sober.
Don't fanboy.
I ran out. I was like in the wings backstage. So I ran out at one point to take a picture of fucking Johnny, and he's like, "Fuck you! I'm on stage taking pictures. I'm that asshole." Like, yeah. And afterwards, I talked to Alice Cooper, and I go, "I don't want to. I'm that guy. Hey, fucking from the inside." And he lit up. It was where he's like,
his favorite records.
Every one of those stories is true. Jackknife Johnny was a real guy.
Yeah. And he'll tell you about those guys. We've done so many albums. We've done so many songs off that album over the years.
Fucking From Across the Street. It's the album that no one knows, and you just brought up bits from that. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you know that?
Yeah, but those are the ones that they're classics. Those are the ones that sort of make you that make you might know the hits, so to speak, but those are the ones that make you a true fan of the band. And
I didn't tell him I probably got it from the library. It's the only one we had. I didn't
good album to get from the library. Shit, Steve Lukather played on that album. Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick played on that album. There's a lot of great musicianship.
It's one of the fucking best songs. I took that serious.
Yeah. We did that a couple years ago.
And a joke and a drink and a smoke, and then I passed out on the floor.
Yeah, man. See, and how do you say you don't like music? See, that's the thing. I feel that music is the great sort of denominator, maybe the big great communicator, as well as comedy. Because there's certain types of music you just don't like. There's certain types of comedy people just don't like. But if you can agree on music in certain bands and certain comedians, I think everybody has that, and it's a bonding thing. No,
there's a bit that never worked. But when people say what kind of music do you like, and I picked out a specific Alan Parsons Project had a song. It was a lyric that says, "The sun in your eyes makes some of your lies worth believing." And because of the moment that I was in, and a girl probably, that lyric affected me, but the rest of the song is shit. And I don't really know any other Alan Parsons Project songs that I know of. So if you're asking me what type of music I like, it's that one lyric. Or Dr. Hook, "Pack your umbrella because Sylvia's starting to rain." That's the kind of music I like, just that much. And maybe the rest I fucking hate. I don't know.
But maybe there's some songs too from the 90s, like, because there was a lot of bands that during those days, those LA days, there were some really good times Maybe a band like, did you know Adam from Counting Crows? Did you ever?
Roses. That would be my number one if I had to pick a favorite, and we're too old to have favorites. August and Everything After is their first album. I know that by heart, and I still can play it to this day and love every song on it.
I thought Adam was always a cool guy. He used to, for fun, he will, at the height of his sort of popularity, he's down at the Viper Room in the downstairs little bar. I don't even know if it's still there or if even the Viper Room's there at this point, folks. But there was a little back bar in underneath, and he used to just, he would just be the bartender there some nights where you just fly in there and stuff like that. Did you get into that whole Los Angeles club scene before you got out in 95? Because that was right around that time where there was
I was never a guy that was like, I remember was the Sky Bar across from the Comedy Store?
That was the one, yes, at the hotel, at the Mondrian.
Hotel Mondrian. Wow, I would have never fucking come up with that reference if it weren't for mimosas. And so I remember like that was the cool place and all the fucking cool people that like you that would go to the Comedy Store, then they'd show up over there. And I go, well, you have to be on the list. It was one of those places. So I go, I was drunk enough to have enough self-confidence to try to palm the guy a 20 to see if that would work to get me in. And he just looked at me and shook his head, giant black guy, and just shook his head. And I'm like, well, I tried. And I looked down and I realized I had pulled out a 1 instead of 20. Like I bribed this guy with a single $1 bill. I was just emasculating and fuck this.
Canadian dollar would have been best.
That's where I found my crew, was at the Coach and Horses. You remember the Horses?
Yeah, those little dive bar. The Coach and Horses was right on Sunset.
Just on the same side down from Coconut Teaser. And it was like so scary when Hedberg and I first found it. Like it's a perfect day drinking bar, but you're almost afraid to go in there. And we'd look in and there's like one old seahorse postured guy nursing a fucking drink, and this hideous, the bartender was like Mama from the Train. She just
it was hipster before hipster almost in that sense.
It became when they fired the old woman, she scared everyone away. She threw a blind guy out for having a dog, and the regulars are like, Ginger, she's like, it's a sign that says no dogs. But he's blind. I don't care. There's a sign. You'd be done with a beer and talking. I was always drinking, but someone else would be done with their beer.
The Coach and Horses was for professionals. For the tourist version of that might have been, and honestly, I actually like that area as well. It was a little bit farther down Hollywood and Sunset, but what was it called, the Burgundy Room? Did you ever go to that place?
I never went there, but I remember it existing.
And there was another couple places, and you'll see it in, I think it was called the Firefly. There was another place off of Hollywood.
Sure, I played at there was a brief moment. There was another one.
The Dragonfly, I'm sure you played at, because the Dragonfly was a club. But I'm talking about these old school sort of dive bars, kind of you'd see in, remember the Mickey Rourke film, Bar?
Barfly. Yeah, it's about Bukowski.
Yeah.
Yeah, these were all Bukowski-like bars, and the Coach and Horses was the best because everyone was afraid to go in there. So you'd have the place to yourself, and then they finally fired that haggard old woman and hired a hot chick, and that's when it became dive-friendly. And I would actually bar back for free just because I'm claustrophobic. And I knew the bartender. I go, let me just fucking wash glasses, and because it was so packed in this tiny bar, I would rather work for free than be out there. And I remember Janine Garofalo coming in with some I think it was Chris Kattan, Saturday Night Live, and one of our regular guys was bothering him. Hey, you're the Saturday Night Live guy. And she came up. I'm just fucking washing dishes behind the bar, and she said, "Can you get that guy to stop bothering Chris Kattan?" And I go, "I don't really work here." And she's like, "Fuck you." I don't think she said "fuck you," but she
said it with her eyes. She said it with her eyes. Yeah. Oh man. So not only a beef with Dan Cook back in the day, it's Janine Garofalo as an enemy as well, and I love it. We're just counting up the beefs, But I was going to get.
You can't tell me a beef that you've had with someone there.
Oh, come on, man! I just had him on Tracy Guns from LA Guns, and I'm having kind of like the same with the Dane Cook story that you're having. Tracy and I are going to like sort of hopefully, it turned out good. But anyhow, that Tracy from LA Guns, good guy.
No, I just remember LA Guns being talked about, like Guns N' Roses, like that was the band that should have happened but didn't for whatever reason.
Yeah, but they definitely had their say. They definitely had their hits. They got a bigger record deal than Electric Angels, and they never got confused with Electric Boys. I'll tell you that.
They never showed up at the library.
God, I love the fact that you had library albums too. I'm telling you, man. I'm trying to think of the other ones now in my head, but I know it's the Devo album. I know it's the Heart album, and I know it's a Kansas album. Those are definitely three of them.
I live in a fucking town of 5,000 people on the Mexican border, 2 hours from the closest airport. So there's no like comics that I hang out with. If I'm touring, I'm bringing a friend of mine, Junior Stopko or someone, Andy Andrist, that I've known for 20 plus years. And I don't get to hang out at the Comedy Store. I don't watch comedy on fucking Netflix because usually it's either terrible or I'm afraid that it's going to be something that I'll forget that I heard and I'll subliminally steal it. Like, don't infect my head with a joke that I go, oh, why didn't I come up with that? And 3 blackouts later, I'm writing it in my notebook like I thought of it.
Great idea. No, sometimes I've come up with great songs that somebody else wrote. Yeah, I think that's happened
David
before.
Attell was the fucking legendary. Everyone knows this about Attell. You would get a call at 3:00 in the morning from Attell going, listen, I just came up with this bit. Have you ever heard anyone do about naked girls on pogo sticks? And I'm like, no one's ever thought of naked girls on pogos. It was just, I thought I heard you say it. Okay, good night.
Oh shit. Well, then again, I so then if we can't talk about today's comedians because you don't really follow them, you're in your place, you're in your safe place in Bisbee. I want to move.
I found a few, like I've become over COVID because of COVID, where I did actually listen to some new guys and like Nate Bargatze.
Okay, Nate.
There's a few. Shane Gillis. He's the guy that got hired and then fired within a day from Saturday Night Live for what they called, some shit he had said on his podcast about Chinatown years before.
Right. That's because it's today's world. Being a comedian is probably the same thing as trying to be a rock star in today's climate. It just doesn't. It seems like it's impossible.
If you look at 70s rock and roll, like how many libraries would cease to exist if you were to look at all the green room stories or the Led Zeppelin spanking a girl with a fish in the green room? Like, okay, we're going to erase their entire library of work. Like porn and rock and roll.
Apparently it was a bit more than spanking, Doug.
Yeah, but I'm just saying of the legendary stories.
Yes,
like people are getting canceled for an improper joke in the workplace. Yeah, well, let's go back to the fucking the Who and shit they did it. Yeah, you would have to eliminate them. So yeah, porn, except for Ron Jeremy, and 70s rock and roll, or even 80s. Like, I don't. Yeah, what happened to fun?
Whatever happened to fun? It all comes back to that. But it does come back to this thing we like to call the main event, and it's the Dying of a Last Breed, which is your newest special, and what sort of dovetails into what you just said, and I hate to use the word dovetail, but it just seems so appropriate right now, was that you actually start out your special with a written apology. And I noticed that there's a couple times that you've done that in albums where you'll start off with sort of explaining something that's very obvious. It's almost like it's like, is this going to be a Doug Stanhope record? And then it becomes Doug Stanhope. So, but I noticed it again in that the not to keep bringing back that Oslo record, but there was you talk about, you know, the language. I will be speaking in very nice terms and this and that. So you explained it for the audience. But in this newest episode, in this newest special, you actually start out with an apology just to clear yourself.
Yeah.
Is that necessary these days?
Well, that's the joke. Is like the people who do these stagnant apologies. It is basically pre-written. The PR people have that Xeroxed, showing my age. Xeroxed. What was it called before that? Where you would sniff the paper.
The blueprints with the Vic Chalfon, our producer, knows. He's older than both of us, but not by much though. He's giving me 2 fingers. All right, no, it's
mimeograph. Anyway, it was
on a roller, right? I think it was on the roller. Yeah, I had it in school.
People go, okay. Oh, did he do something wrong? Here, just read this at a press conference. Here you go. That was basically what I was opening with. I will try to grow from this experience, and I learned that I have hurt people. And okay, let's just get
after this very eloquent, basically apology. Then you bust right into Dead Kids, and that's, folks, is all I'll give you guys until because you have to go out and get the special. And the thing is, oh man, you know what? I'm gonna have.
I think it's only on Amazon Prime.
Well.
All my old Oslo was the first one on Netflix. Everything that I had on Netflix has been pulled because if I was famous enough that they could shame me, I would be canceled based on old material. Well, did you say this word? Yep. Did you get it in context or intent of the whole bit? No, you didn't. You just heard words.
Well, just so you know,
this fucking guy is great. I love Vic.
There you go, Vic. That's it.
Vic saw me play at a fucking fish restaurant in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And that's recently. It's it's a great career where you sell out the fucking Hammersmith fucking Apollo, and then a month later you're playing a fish restaurant, and I fucking love it. I love I wouldn't want to exclusively play fish restaurants, but yeah, it keeps you in check. And I have more fun at a fish restaurant in Arkansas than I do with the stress of a fucking sold out London show.
Well, just so you know, you and Alice again have something in common, because that's where the Brutally Live DVD that we shot, was at the Hammersmith Apollo. So there you go.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the fucking Mermaids in fucking Fayetteville, Arkansas.
No,
that would be funny.
That's something that's more of a club tour thing that I would be used to doing. Planning.
I want to fucking book you. This is how I wake up. A song gets in my head. Even if it's just nonsense, even if it's not really a song, I put something gets into a loop of Feed the Cat. And then I get a loop of Feed the Cat, and I make up. So I saw you recently. My producer found Sweet Ballroom Blitz, the video. And then I saw that you were doing a goofy thing where you're doing a cover band of glam rock.
Glam Nation. Yeah.
And I go, fuck, if he's ever over here, we're going to make him fucking that Sweet Ballroom Blitz video is so captivating. Like, we made everyone know you have to just, and she could kill you with a wink of an eye.
That we actually have a band that it was called Glam Nation, and then sometimes it's called Starfuckers, and then sometimes it's called The Other White Meat. It's one of those 3 bands that we have. Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats can be the drummer sometimes, or it's Eric Singer. And oddly enough, that, like you say, Chris Katane, we have a lead singer named Eric Dover that looks very, very similar to Chris Katane. And I know Vic's trying very hard to get a picture of Eric Dover up, but don't worry about it, dude.
Just get Chris Katane, that clit nose fucking, yeah, it's an unfortunate look. I know I have one.
The beef is real. The thing I was going to tell you about your special, though, it's not only available on Amazon Prime. We watched it via I think it's Serbian, it might be Croatian, probably Russian subtitles porn site, and you can see, I'm telling you, I actually did watch it. So I do, because I couldn't find, I couldn't find somewhere to rent it and actually do it because I don't have an Amazon Prime account or whatever the hell you need to do. So I went, like you always do, onto some sort of, I guess, sort of, what do you call it, dark web. I think it's available on the dark web.
I'm all for it. Steal.
Watch it. I mean, nobody pays for music
for free. Like, we wanted to we want to get our money back because we did self-produce it. But then we were going to release it, and I don't know if it's Pornhub. They're like, yeah, we'll release it on Pornhub. But it was right around then that my manager found out Pornhub was having, oh wait, some people are putting like revenge porn, or girls that were like saying that it was not consensual, and Pornhub didn't do enough to take it down. I'm like, all right, yeah, we don't need to be involved in that beef.
No, you want to be in a completely different movie. Move over to something more mainstream, like something Harvey Weinstein is sort of. What? I want to talk about the books, because you have a new book that's coming out that No Encore for the Donkey. It's out, but I need to clear this up with you, Doug. You've written 4 books, but you say that you've written 3. So the newest one, No Encore for the Donkey, just came out in 2020. But way back before, do you talk about fun with pedophiles all that much?
Only in the fact that it's the only thing that I've ever done that I laugh at, like, gratuitously. Back in those days when I was not welcomed at the Coconut Teaser, I would go back. I just learned how to use the internet, and someone sent me a link to baiting, like fish bait, baiting.org. I think it's still up but archived. Okay. But they would fuck with pedophiles on AOL Instant Messenger. I'm a 12-year-old girl that likes hot talk with older men, must be, whatever. And they would bait pedophiles, just like Chris Hansen stepped in. What did you bring? Zima and condoms for what? But this was just being funny.
Early. Yeah.
This was before Chris Hansen, and you just fuck with them and get them like jacking off. And it always ends with, okay, now I'm pulling my dick out. I'm jerking off to you, that kind of thing. Where they're like, what?
or you would break into that John Lydon fucking impersonation, and that would be it.
No, this is all chat. Like,
it was all chat. Okay, so the thing is, you were actually
chat logs of fucking with people, and you. Like, once you get the guy jacking off, you can say pretty much anything, and he's gonna like, hey, get back to the sex talk. Okay, well, I don't have any legs.
So you were shaming pedophiles via dial-up, which is very commendable way back in the day, because it had to be a modem of some sort. There was definitely no high-speed Wi-Fi.
I can't do that. And then you're connected.
You. Pedophile shaming. Digging Up Mother was the next.
It was like a prank call, and you go, oh, I can justify this because you're trying to fuck a 13-year-old girl online. But it's like the I could almost be canceled for the grotesque shit I wrote in those logs, even though, like, they would probably defend the pedophile more than
you were the real Jerky Boys.
I would never. You can say I'm as funny as Lenny Bruce, and I'd go, yeah, well, I don't get Lenny Bruce, but yeah, the Jerky Boys was the Jerky Boy was the best. The other guy was not. The other guy, like the eye patch guy from Dr. Hook, he didn't really fucking add much to the thing other than
image, baby. Then you wrote what a lot of people say was your first book, but that was Digging Up Mother, and that has a foreword by Johnny Depp. So you obviously had met Depp by then.
Yeah.
And then sort of the book started coming. This Is Not Fame,
Yeah, This Is Not Fame was basically road stories that I know my fans would want to hear. And but yeah, the newest one is like the most fucked up year. It's just 1 year. No Encore for the Donkey was about 2016. That started with my wife and I breaking up in heroic fashion, and then getting back. It was the year that fucking Amber Heard sued me for defamation for standing up for Johnny Depp, and it just everything that was supposed to go right went wrong, and it ends with my wife in a fucking coma as Donald Trump is getting elected, and we don't know if she's going to live or die. And I still went to LA to do that live podcast for election night, Rogan and Bill Burr, and then back to the hospital for a month to see if my wife. It was just a fucked up year, and so it
needed to be written. It was. Do you enjoy writing books?
No, but I don't enjoy doing comedy either.
It was a bit of a catharsis. I hate saying that word because I can't never say it right, and my producer always says, "Can you just say certain words right?" Catharsis, right? Something that comes out.
Le Courier. I finally figured out how to say Dennis from Dr. Hook's last name. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well,
you practice catharsis enough on an hour-and-a-half podcast, you'll get catharsis.
Well, thank you for helping me with the pronunciation. My linguist, Doug Stanhope. But do you find that the writing these books, getting it out there, is important for you?
It's when you write a book, when it's finally done, it's like a breech birth. Okay, this is over. It's out of me. But the process is sometimes so frustrating, so infuriating, where you go, it's not like comedy where if I don't have something to say, I can go, well, where are you from? Or go into the crowd. Like this is permanent. And when I'm done, like that book, I was really proud of. Other ones, you go, I don't know. I never really wrote a book. The first one, and the second one, I was in a time crunch and forced in some old shit. But this one, yeah, I really like this one.
All right. So no encore for the donkey.
When you write a book, you don't have to do it every night for the next 300 days on the road.
True. Or you have to go on a book tour. I had Jordan Peterson on, and he's like a bigger rock star than any of us these days. And he's talking about how he did this book tour in 2018, 60 cities, for promoting his, 12 Rules for Life book. But I know that you have your boy Matt Napo from Mind Dog TV. He loves the books. He was first in line to listen to. He's given it, all the press you can give it. So that's where I got a lot of the information out of this newest book, No Encore for the Donkey. So shout out to Matt.
Yes, that was one of the guys that during COVID, a million things I would have never done is other people's podcasts or having the hubris to ask someone to be on my podcast. Like, all right, at some point I realized, oh, we're all fucking sitting here doing nothing. It used to be asking someone to do your podcast was like, can I get a ride to LAX? It's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
Now, well, we're all just sitting around anyway.
Well, I appreciate you being on In the Trenches now.
Let's talk.
Yeah, well, dude, you don't know how much I appreciate you being on right now. I feel if you're cool with keeping on talking, or we can maybe come back another time, or you.
I think we've spent the fucking listener's ear.
Well, I mean, then I can break it up into two parts. It doesn't matter because but it's up to you. Like I said, because there's a couple more sections that I normally do in the set.
I'm good. I'm good.
If you're cool with it, because there's a couple more sort of sections.
My credo is, I call it the triple P's, and it's practice, persistence, and patience. So if the listener has patience, then we can go another 15, 20. I don't care.
That's what I preach on this fucking show. Practice, persistence, patience. The 3 P's. There was a girl from wait a second. You did some research on me. Damn it. All right. I fell for it. Fuck off. Just got punked. Oh, yeah. Fuck everybody. Here I was thinking like, holy shit, we've got this bond now. Doug and I I'm moving to Bisbee.
My three are drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes. Where I would say that's how did you get where you are? Drugs opened up my mind to think of some out of the box shit, for lack of a better term. Cigarettes gave me the patience to write it out in a comedy-friendly format, and alcohol gives me the confidence to present it in front of a bunch of judgmental assholes like you in the audience. That's my 3 Ps. Cigarette, alcohol.
DAC. No, it's your DAC. I love it.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.